Welcome to the PHNX Coyotes podcast, brought to you by the one and only DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a 5-star review. I'm Leah Merrill here with Craig Morgan in studio. Petey is joining us live from his in-laws' basement in Des Moines, Iowa. And we are thrilled to be joined today by Florida Hockey Now's George Richards, who covers the Florida Panthers, because there's been a big blockbuster trade that went down late on a Friday night, really out of the blue for a lot of us, and an odd time for a trade, let's just say.
Especially for George,
Yeah.
like 11 p.m.
Yeah, right. Especially on the East Coast, late for us, let alone the East Coast. So we brought George in today to break it all down. Welcome to the PHNX Coyotes podcast, George. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. What's going on?
George, we're going to get to that timing in just a minute, but Petey is in his in-laws' basement right now, so I got to ask Petey, is this a permanent thing?
You know, this trip across the country is getting way too damn long. I want to say get me home, but I see the temperatures are finally below 100 in Arizona today, so I might start making my way back. Yeah, I'm ready,
Right.
Uncle.
We're ready for you to come home. George, on the topic of the trade, let's get to that first. Let's just get to the details. What were you doing? Where were you? And how did you manage to cover this trade when it went down, I believe, at about 11 o'clock at night, your time?
Well, believe it or not, it was Friday night in South Florida, and I was at my sister's house watching a movie with the kids. I had I'd put my phone on the counter. I had taken my Apple Watch off, and we were just watching Ghostbusters. And I get up to get a glass of water, and I look at my phone, and I got a message from Calgary saying, "Hey, can we talk about the trade with you?" And I'm like, "What trade?" Yeah, I kind of missed the whole thing. I mean, because it's my fault, because I should have expected a major NHL blockbuster to happen at 11:15 on a Friday night in the last week of July. I mean, I should have just, done me.
Exactly.
I figured my work day was over, but luckily Colby guy who works with me at Florida Hockey Now was trying to reach me, couldn't get a hold of me, and was like, George is, somewhere else. I'm just going to write this thing and publish it. And thank goodness he did, because I'm like, I don't have anything to write with. And I look, oh, it's already up. Okay, well, we're good. I'll tweet this out.
Oh, my goodness.
That, in a nutshell, is the life of a beat writer. That's it, right? You're never off. You're never allowed to be off.
Right. When the Florida Panthers traded Roberto Luongo at the Vancouver draft back in 05, 06, whatever it was. Yeah, that was, 11 o'clock Miami time. And we were in Vancouver running to go talk to my kid. It's just, that happens.
All right. Well, let's get to the trade itself. It happened pretty quickly after Matthew Tkachuk as an RFA informed the Calgary Flames that he would not be signing a long-term deal with the Flames, which was another hit to Calgary at the time, at least in the wake of Johnny Gaudreau's move to Columbus. So talk to me about how this trade went down. Just give me some of the behind the scenes things that maybe we haven't heard that you can share about how all this went down and what it looked like from Florida's angle.
Well, from in talking with Bill Zito, it sounds like it went like this. Last weekend, Matthew Tkachuk's team tells the Flames, we're not resigning. He had one more year left under team control as an RFA, but he would not sign a long-term deal. So now the Calgary Flames are scrambling a little bit. According to what I was told, there were 3 teams on the list, Florida being one of them. And apparently last Wednesday was the first contact that the Calgary Flames had with Bill Zito in Florida. And Zito said he didn't think it was even possible. He was like, what? Yeah, Matthew Tkachuk, right. What do you want? And at that point, the ball starts rolling, because Calgary kind of knows Florida's about it. Maybe St. Louis is in the mix, but it's pretty much Florida or St. Louis from what I've gathered. And that's where the ball gets going. On Friday, Matthew Tkachuk is in New Jersey at the Shore with his family. They're celebrating Brady's engagement. And he's told by his agent, also his uncle, Scott Osler, do not go anywhere without your phone. We got something cooking. It looks like it's Florida. He gets a fax, sign this contract. It's a new 8-year deal. It's with Calgary, but it's going to Florida, and that was that. And Scott told Matt, apparently, don't tell anybody this thing's going on Friday afternoon. First thing he does is go upstairs and tell his whole family. So, so just one of those things where it was bang, bang, bang. And, on Florida side, just talking to Bill Zito, as I've been reporting, Florida was going to sign Jonathan Huberdeau to a long-term extension. Anything else you're hearing that, he wanted too much money and all that, he might have, but he had a year to sign this deal. Something would have been worked out. They were going to sign Jonathan Huberdeau to an extension until this came about. The Panthers basically trade Jonathan Huberdeau for Matt Tkachuk, younger player. That's the contract they would have given Jonathan Huberdeau. Now Tkachuk's got it. That's that.
I think, at least I've been guilty of this. You just hear the Matthew Tkachuk trade, so you're only thinking about that side of the trade. But like you just said, they gave up Huberdeau, and not just Huberdeau, but Mackenzie Weegar also, which, he's, a good young player. So I'm curious, what is the local reaction among the Florida fans and the Florida media to this? And do people feel like Florida gave up too much?
There is that thought. I mean, yes. I mean, because you gave up a Jonathan Huberdeau, a franchise leader in just about everything but goals. That's Sasha Barkov. He has that. But Huberdeau's the franchise leader in everything. He's been here since 2011, was drafted here in 2011, started here in 2013, a Florida Panther lifer, right? And that's why you think he would have signed a long-term deal here. Whatever was going on with he would have signed here. But you also give up Mackenzie Weegar. Now, if you look at it from us, we're hockey people. The Panthers were not going to sign Mackenzie Weegar next year. If they were going to sign Jonathan Huberdeau, they were not going to sign Mackenzie Weegar. So basically what you're giving up is a year of Weegar. You would have used him as your own rental. So he goes now. So you lose a year of him. You gave up a prospect, which, we don't know what's going to happen there. And then they give up a protected 2025 first-round draft pick. So Florida does seem to give up a lot, but truthfully, they gave up Huberdeau for Tkachuk because they couldn't coexist. The money wouldn't have worked. You gave up a year of Mackenzie Weegar. So it was a steep price to pay, but it was a price the Panthers were willing to make. And with Meeks making $3 million and Huberdeau making $6 million, that equals the $9 million you needed when you're signing Matt Tkachuk to a 6-year deal, an 8-year deal.
George, you got a team just coming off the President's.
Oh, yep. Petey, we lost your volume.
See, I bumped my mic. See, sorry, George. You're coming off a Florida team with their best season ever on points of the President's Trophy, and the most common theme is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You change the coaching staff, and now you make a blockbuster trade. Does Bill Zito feel this team is better going into this season?
He hopes it is. I mean, because you got to think Florida will be a little more defensive next year, even though they just lost to Mackenzie Weegar. When you've got a Paul Maurice coming in here, that Florida may be better on defense than they were, even though maybe the parts don't look as good on paper, because that is a weakness. You just gave up Mackenzie Weegar at a very nice term at $3.25 million. You gave him into that trade, so you lose him this year. Long term, the Panthers are going to be better, but they think that they're going to be, they've run into the Tampa Bay Lightning the last 2 years in the playoffs. They actually looked better against Tampa last year than they did this year. And that's what they're looking at. They want to be a Stanley Cup championship team. They feel like a player like Matt Tkachuk translates better into the playoffs. Okay. And that's what this move was made for. Some people down here, I mean, when you ask about this market, some people are like, oh, the Panthers are just like the Marlins. It's a fire sale. It's like, what are you talking about? They just got a top 10, top 15 player. Yeah. So, I mean, hockey people know what this kind of trade was about. But as far as, some fans, it is what it is.
Let me follow up on something you just said. When they take a look, when they put the microscope on that playoff performance, and granted, you're playing a 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion, so that's no easy task anyway. But when they put the microscope on that series in particular, did they in fact say, we need more edge? We need the kind of thing that Matthew Tkachuk is going to bring to this team?
Yeah, and I think they did that last year as well. And that's why they brought in Sam Reinhart last year at the draft. I think so. I think they watched the playoffs and they saw how teams played and how Florida played. Florida did not react very well to what Tampa did to them in the second round. There was no adjustments. They get swept in 4, and their best game was game 4. You figure Matt Tkachuk can score from anywhere on the ice. He plays a different style of game, but the points are going to be there. If you look at, he and Huberdeau's numbers this past year, they're pretty darn close. So yeah, they wanted that toughness. They wanted a little more edge. That's another reason why Paul Maurice is here. You think he's going to bring a little bit more, a different defensive style. The Panthers got 121 points last year. Paul Maurice said, well, everybody expects next year we're going to get 122. Truth is, he knows they're not. He's a veteran coach. He can handle that. That questions, well, you guys were worse this year than you were last. Well, yeah, you're going to be. The Florida Panthers were historically good last year in the regular season. This is about the playoffs. This is about, making a deep run in the playoffs and eventually trying to win the Stanley Cup. So that's what Bill Zito's got on his mind, and that's why he's making these moves. But it would have been very easy, right? Status quo. Look at what we did. Let's run it back.
Run it back, yeah.
And last year wasn't good enough.
Which is what may happen here with the Phoenix Suns. I want to ask you a 2-part question here about Tkachuk, his fit there. First of all, it's fun to imagine the possibilities playing with Sasha Barkov, whether it's Carter Verhaeghe or Sam Reinhart. Let's talk about that. And then in terms of marketing, in terms of, with a franchise that obviously has its own challenges, being out in Sunrise, we understand all the challenges the Florida Panthers have here in Arizona. How can he help in that regard, and how will they utilize him in that regard?
Well, yeah, I mean, the team's been here almost 30 years, and we're still talking about growing the game, right? I mean, winning grows the game, and building, and they're building ice rinks all over South Florida, just like they're doing in the Valley. So, he says he's excited about that, about being part of this, and the Panthers are moving all their operations to Fort Lauderdale on the east side of town, about 2 miles from the beach. Players are excited about that. So, yeah, they're still going to play the games in Sunrise. That arena's not going anywhere. But as far as morning skates and practices, they'll be, about 1.5 miles from where the players live. So they're all excited about that. Listen, Jonathan Huberdeau did a lot to grow this game down here, and so does Sasha Barkov. He's very big with the Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital, which is located in Hollywood. And Jonathan Huberdeau did some stuff like that, and I'm sure Matt will join in. So, it's an exciting time for the Panthers. And again, we're dealing with a market. I'm not telling you guys anything. People down here don't even know where Calgary is, much less who Matt Tkachuk is. So they're going to have – they know – everybody here knows Jonathan Huberdeau. So when you say how'd the fans react, it's 90% negative because it's a player they love and know and another guy that they've never heard of. And that's just South Florida. I mean, you could say that about if the Miami Heat acquired somebody. Oh, I've never heard of him. He plays in Arizona. Does you haven't heard of him doesn't make this a good deal.
Does he fit with Sasha, though? Is that a good fit in your mind?
Yeah. Back to your question. Yeah, I think he does, and I think he's going to play there. But who knows? Paul Maurice may switch things up. I mean, sometimes you don't want to heavily load up that line. He'll be on the first power play unit with Sasha for sure. I would think he starts the season on the right side with Carter Verhaeghe on the left. But Matt Tkachuk can play on the right side or the left side, so that gives you options where you can move him around a little bit and do a number of things. So we'll just have to see how it goes, but it's exciting because he gives you versatility and he gives you, a lot of different options.
Going back to something you said before, I think in the press conference today, Matthew Tkachuk said he feels like he brings a level of swagger to the ice and off the ice, and he's hoping that will help him connect with Florida fans and help grow the game. So I just thought that was an interesting comment.
Yeah, they're going to love him.
Absolutely.
Once they see him play, they're going to be like, oh, this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. But transitioning to another question, is there a concern that the Panthers don't have any first-round pick for the next 3 seasons? Or is that just not where the team is right now?
Yes and no. I mean, we saw the Detroit Red Wings trade away, their picks, all those years, and they found guys. They found Hall of Famers in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round. That's what Florida's going to have to do now. They're going to have to replenish. They're going to have to replenish their system and all that through smart work, bringing in maybe somebody cut loose by another organization that they scouted that they had on their list. Those guys are available. And if all things go the way the Panthers hope, these draft picks are going to be in the late 20s and 30s anyway. So that's really a second round pick. Yeah. Next year, Montreal has Florida's first round pick, and it is not protected. So if the Florida Panthers fall off the face of the earth and finish fifth in the Atlantic, they're in trouble because now Montreal has a nice draft pick out of that. But I don't think anybody expects that to happen.
In your conversations with Tkachuk and hearing what is his plan over the summer and when is he making the move to Florida?
Well, he was as I walked out with him to the elevator, he was going to meet with a realtor here.
I tell you what, George, I'd waste no time either.
Getting from Calgary to Florida. He's a guy. He lives in St. Louis. St. Louis in July and August is not the best place in the world, I wouldn't think. Just watching all those St. Louis Cardinal games over the years, and they're like, it's 132 degrees on the turf here at Busch Stadium. He's looking for that beachside place in Fort Lauderdale ASAP.
Yeah, that life change from Calgary to Florida is going to be massive. And one last question for me, George. What does this team have to do to get past the Tampa Bay Lightning?
Well, age may play a factor in that. I asked Matthew about the Lightning today, and he was like, "Listen, they're still they're not still the champs, but they're still the team. They've been to the finals the past 3 years. They've had the Panthers number in the playoffs, not in the regular season, but definitely in the playoffs the past 2 seasons. And that's the team that the Florida Panthers measure themselves up against and have to beat. I mean, the Atlantic is a bear of a division." And it's not just Tampa Bay. It's also Toronto. It's also Boston to a lesser extent. But you've got Ottawa now coming up. You've got Buffalo is improving. Detroit, they're going to be good eventually with Steve there. So they know they've got to beat Tampa. This move was made in a lot of reasons because of Tampa, because of what Carolina has done, because you got the up and coming New York Rangers. The Florida Panthers see what the East looks like, and they want to be not only a part of it, they want to win it. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Eastern Conference works its way out through this, because there are a lot of good teams on the east side of the NHL.
George, the NHL doesn't have a lot of great rivalries. The league itself has done its part to kill some of them, like the Red Wings and the Blackhawks. Sure. We saw the Battle of Alberta. We also saw the Battle of South Florida. But how would you describe that rivalry? What's it like? Is it heated?
Yeah, and you know what? It really, even though for years they were pumping it up, and there was like, yeah, all right, well, whatever. It's Florida and Tampa, and there's a a Citrus Series trophy that nobody, or the Governor's Cup, some dumb thing. There really was when those two teams play, because they play so much in the preseason, they play so much during the regular season. There was a different edge to it, but traditionally it wasn't really a market until last year when they played in the playoffs. They played 8 times. I think because of COVID in preseason and postseason, in the calendar year of 2021, the Panthers and Lightning played like 20 times when you count all the games in the calendar year of 2021. That creates a rivalry among players, and that's where it's important because South Florida and Tampa Bay are two completely markets. Neither one cares about the other, but the Florida Panthers Tampa Bay Lightning rivalry does seem legit, and these battles in the playoffs has taken it to a completely different level.
Yeah.
While we have you here, I have to ask, because we're a Coyotes podcast and people here care a lot about Jakob Chychrun, who's from Florida, and I know he is a name that over the year was rumored to possibly, Florida as a destination. Obviously, Florida's made this huge trade, given up a first-round pick, which is kind of what's been rumored that Bill Armstrong would ask, that there's barely any first-round picks up to give. But if Jakob Chychrun were to become available again, do you think Florida would be in the mix at all, or do you think that ship has completely sailed?
I think it's sailed now. I think they would love to have Chick down here. His dad works on the TV broadcasts. The Florida Panthers are the team he grew up watching. Last year for the first, I know you guys have had homegrown players, a lot of those in the NHL, but last year the Florida Panthers had their first homegrown player play for them in Chase Prisky, kid from Pembroke Pines, and he played with Chick on a couple of those junior Panther teams and all that. So Florida would definitely love to have a regular and a player like that too. Not to mention just the South Florida ties. I just don't see how it could be done. Right?
Yeah.
They've got no draft capital. They would have to give up all their prospects and a couple. I think with Arizona, there is not a no trade. There is not a Chychrun does not control this. Now, Tkachuk controlled where he was going to sign long term. He kind of controlled the narrative. Jacob's got 3 years left on his contract. He doesn't really have a say over where he goes. So Arizona's going to get the best deal possible. Whenever they decide to do it, they're going to get the best deal possible for Arizona. And they're not going to just say, okay, give me a list of 3 teams you'll go to. They're going to be like, bud, you're gone. This is what we got for you. So, or maybe you just keep him. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there. But Florida would love to be in it, but they're not going to have anything near to offer what other teams will.
Yeah.
All right, bud. I'm gonna take a look at the schedule and see if I can figure out a way to get down there, or maybe you'll head out this way for an Arizona matchup
at the Tempe at the ASU multi-purpose arena.
Come on, I love coming out there.
Everybody wants to see the ASU arena, right?
I mean, I got all my places in Glendale ready to go.
There you
go. George, thank you so much for joining us. This is great insight, and we really appreciate your time. So thanks so much for coming.
Good talking to y'all. Thanks.
All right.
George.
Thanks, George. Thanks again to George Richards from Florida Hockey Now for joining us. Great, behind the scenes insight of the trade that I couldn't even process it because it happened so late. And I literally was walking out of the movie theater and had a text from Craig about it. That's how I found out. Just an unbelievable blockbuster on a Friday night in July.
Yeah, and listen, there are Coyotes connections to this name, obviously, with Keith having played here. The contract stuff, even we've talked about this, right? There were contract holdouts for Keith Tkachuk. Petey, you were there for those as well. Yeah. You were around for all this
Brady.
stuff. So yeah, and Brady
runs in the family.
Yeah, it's an interesting move. I do think that Florida gave up a lot, and there were reports out there that the other offers for Matthew Tkachuk were nothing like this offer. So did Bill Zito overpay? Well, maybe, but you just heard George say. And surprisingly to me, they weren't going to sign Mackenzie Weegar. To be honest, if I'm looking at those 2 players, he might be the guy that I look to re-sign rather than Jonathan Huberdeau in spite of the points. But that was the reality. So, that Florida made the decision to get, in my mind, the best player in the trade, right, in Matthew Tkachuk. But credit Brad Treliving as well for making something out of a really, really tough situation. The Flames were backed into a corner. They didn't have a lot of trade options. Look, as he said, when you're an RFA and you tell a team you're not going to sign long-term, you have a lot of control over where you can go. And then your agent can work behind the scenes to tell teams, hey, you're pretty much the only game in town. So it makes it even tougher on a general manager to strike a deal. And yet this is a deal where there are really, really high-end pieces going both ways. You just don't see this kind of trade very often in the NHL, let alone late in July.
Yeah, I think for me, Craig, there's so many facets to this trade. First of all, I was incredibly surprised at what Florida gave up. You're talking about a team that had 122 points, wins the President's Trophy, and is maybe, I don't know what the piece is away from a Stanley Cup. They just got to get over Tampa. To lose the pieces. Mackenzie Weegar is a high-end right-handed offensive defenseman. He's fun to watch. He transports the puck extremely well. He is a guy that they're going to love in Calgary. Like, that's something they've missed in Calgary. And Huberdeau, he's averages more points per game than Tkachuk right now. He's just about a point a game guy. Like, he's 29. Tkachuk's 24. Is that the difference in age? Tkachuk is 24.
Significant difference in age. Yeah.
Significant difference in age. Tkachuk had more games by the time he was 24 than Huberdeau did when he was 24 because he played 2 years as a junior. When I look at this trade, for me, this is, I know you go to DraftKings, Lee, and we'll get there next. It's a win for both teams. Their odds of winning the Cup both went up, which is unbelievably rare. Calgary's going to have a hard time getting players. Brad Treliving went on notice last week saying, hey, people are being too hard on this market, too hard on this franchise. The reality is they play in a bad hockey rink. It's old. It needs to be updated. The city was so close to getting that deal done. The difference between Edmonton and Calgary and what they did in their facilities, Edmonton knocked it out of the park. Like they have a premier facility, and players got attracted because of McDavid and premier facilities. Calgary needs to update that rink. Brad Treliving can't build a rink. He can build a hockey team. Yeah. So what did he do? He made the best of a bad situation. I think he has really good players here. I really do. And they're both talking about, Weegar and Huberdeau are both talking about signing long-term contracts now with Calgary. Now, whether they do or not, I don't know. They both publicly have said on Twitter that they're both interested in those long-term contracts. So I think Brad Treliving did an outstanding job turning a negative, bad situation into good. Now, can Matthew carry the load and get them farther than Huberdeau did? I guess time will tell.
Yeah, I was curious to see the odds, and you mentioned them, Petey. So now pulling up the DraftKings Sportsbook app, Florida has the second best odds to win the Stanley Cup, plus 850. Behind Colorado, who's still plus 400. And then as for the conference winners, Florida is tied for first for the best odds to win the conference with the Leafs at plus 450. And then division, the Pacific, the Flames have the second, tied for the second best odds to be second, plus 275, and Atlantic, Florida is tied for first with Toronto at plus 190. So interesting to see how the lines shift with trades like this. And like you said, it was interesting to see the reaction to both teams' odds. So if you want to get in on some of these futures, you can also bet on the President's Trophy winner, Florida, tied for second best odds, plus 700. On there. So lots of stuff you can bet on DraftKings, even though it's not hockey season right now. There's always stuff, not just hockey, but you can bet on baseball that's going on right now. Tons of stuff as always. So be sure to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. If you haven't already, use the promo code PHNX, make your first deposit and get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code PHNX only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
By the way, Matthew Tkachuk's odds to win the Hart Trophy are plus 3,000. Immediately behind him is Jonathan Huberdeau at plus 3,500.
That's good. That's a good.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good little tidbit. Craig, I know that a storyline that came up a lot associated with this trade is, for some reason, Coyotes fans are stuck on the idea that Arizona wasn't in on this, which I don't know why they would be at this point, but also why Arizona never has been in on Matthew Tkachuk, and that's something that both John Chayka and Bill Armstrong have not gone for. So what do you have to say about that side of it?
It's true. Let's start with the draft, because first of all, he wasn't available, or it was Brady. I'm trying to remember now. Matthew Tkachuk was not available for the Coyotes, right?
That is correct. He was picked before by the Ottawa. Matthew.
That's Brady.
That's Brady.
Sorry, Matthew. Jeez.
We're like so prepared.
Yeah, I was, and then I blanked it. Just had but here's the thing. In terms of this year with Matthew Tkachuk, a lot of people asked me if they were in on him. You know, some people asked, okay, can you accelerate the rebuild by getting a Matthew Tkachuk? That's the mistake that the Coyotes have made so often. Granted, I would argue you never had a player of that caliber that you were talking about adding to the mix, but there are so many holes on this roster that it just didn't make sense to pursue this at this point. The other side of it is Matthew Tkachuk wasn't coming here. I know there were some reports out there that said, oh, he might be interested. I did read a couple of those. It's not true. He had a short list of teams that he was willing to sign with. The Coyotes were not one of those teams, and you can completely understand why. It's not a slight on the Coyotes, but let's be honest. A player of Matthew Tkachuk's caliber who wants to win right now and has a chance to basically pick, the contender that he's going to come to Arizona in the midst of a rebuild. That's just nuts. Who's going to do that? It doesn't make any sense. Go ahead, Petey. You did some research, right?
I just did we just went back to the 2016 draft. And of course, I did my research because I'm in Iowa and I didn't plan very well. I did the wrong Tkachuk because that was
you were still right with what happened.
But it was, Calgary had the 6th pick in 2016 and they picked Matthew Tkachuk. Arizona had the 7th pick right after, and they picked Clayton Keller with the 7th pick the next. So no, he was never available. His brother was never available. And who knows, revisionist history, who would have gone where. To Craig's point, when you put this kind of pressure on an organization to leave and to get out, you're not coming to the Arizona Coyotes and playing at ASU for the next 3 years with no opportunity of making the playoffs or winning. You're not. And I'd love to see a Tkachuk in a play for the Coyotes again. And you know what? Never say never here.
Never say never.
Never
Truly.
say never. When it's the Austin Matthews, Matthew Tkachuk, Brady Tkachuk, they'll all come back when this team is playing at the new building in Tempe.
It's interesting that Brady signed the long-term deal in Ottawa, though, but Matthew didn't want to stay in Calgary. I mean, yeah, that first of all, Calgary's arena. I mean, I have nostalgia for the Saddle Dome, but let's be blunt. That place is a dump.
Well, it got flooded too.
Underwater. Petey. Yeah,
underwater.
10 rows up underwater during the floods a few years ago. That place needs to be replaced so badly. So
at least the ASU arena will be brand new.
I'm glad you said it about Brad too. Like, right? It's not his job to build an arena. He can't do anything about that. But yeah, it impacts whether players want to be there. So get it done, Calgary. Or you know what? If you're not going to get it done, if you're going to keep saying, oh, they've got a suitable arena, or you just can't come to an agreement, well, at some point the NHL might look at that market and say, hey, it's got to happen, or else something else might happen.
Yeah, and that's a great city. And Brad brought that up too. We've traveled to Calgary many, many, many times. It's the Denver of the North. I mean, it's similar weather. You got the skiing. It's great. It's got the mountains. Love it. The arena, after being that devastated by floods, they were able to rebuild a lot of the lower level areas, including the locker rooms. But they need more. It's so, you don't want to see this. It's hard. It's going to be hard to attract free agents to Calgary. It just is, unless they're a Stanley Cup champion, and then it's easier to do that. We talk about winning. I like this move for Calgary. I think getting a lot of assets, and let's look at it. They lost their two top scorers in Johnny Hockey and Tkachuk. And I go, gosh, this team's going to really struggle next year. Well, now you bring in a guy that can provide offense, and you got someone that can transport the puck up the ice from the back end. And I still like their goaltending. So I think this was a must move for Brad Treliving and the Calgary Flames. Had to do something that they came out on the positive side on. They did. I'm really curious on the other side of this trade. What is Bill Zito doing for this franchise that did get the league best 122 points? What does this say? Bringing in one player, you're losing two. Like, there's a lot of pressure on Tkachuk here this year. For me, in Florida, he has to perform. And this team hasn't been out of the second round since they were in the Stanley Cup Finals. They need to get through this second round, and I don't know how. Toronto's going to be outstanding, but I don't know their path. It's going to be very, very, very hard for this Florida Panther team to get through the second round.
You know, and George downplayed the loss of the first round draft picks, but I think there's a lot of pressure on Bill Zito for that fact as well. And not necessarily because of this trade, but because of this trade in the context of what he did before it, when you go get Claude Giroux and give up a pick, when you get Ben Sherrod and give up a pick. You don't have those. When you build a roster like this and you know you're going to be capped out, you need those high-end players coming up through the system that are on cost-controlled salaries to replenish your ranks. And when you don't have them, like George says, you have to get really creative to find those players. If Florida doesn't take a quantum leap in the next couple of seasons, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Bill Zito for these moves that he made, because it's almost like he's pushed them all in and said, we're going for it right now. Is it too early? I don't know. You love to see this as a fan sometimes, to have a GM that really wants to go after it, but I don't know, man. When I look at these moves, I'm not sure this was the best decision.
That's why you look at those trade deadline deals for Giroux. And do you know how many draft picks they have the next 3 years in the first two rounds? 2. You know how many the Coyotes have? 11.
Right.
Coyotes have 11 picks in the first 2 rounds over the next 3 years. Florida has 2, none in the first. Like, I don't know what they're going to do. And that's the concern when you do those big trade deadline deals like Giroux. And now you're paying for it. And you're paying for it for what, the next decade? This team has to win now, or for me, because they have nothing in their cupboards now. They gave up all these assets. So they have to win with Tkachuk, and they have to win now.
Yeah. Something else Tkachuk said in his press conference today, which I watched on double speed 20 minutes before our show.
Because I forwarded to Leah like 20 minutes before the show started.
But 2 things. One, when he sat down at the press conference, he looked out, and you can't see the crowd, but he said, I don't know who said Florida doesn't have a lot of media, because there's a lot of people here. So that was cool. And then the other thing was he actually talked about being born in Arizona and growing up in St. Louis, and because someone had asked him about getting to return to play hockey in the United States as an American-born player and just what that meant to him. And he talked about just the importance of having markets in those cities to help grow the game. And he just is really looking forward to being part of growing the game in South Florida. So I always like that, just, as we're covering a Sunbelt team, and I like seeing the success of that. So I'm glad that that's on his mind as well.
And also look at the state tax structure in Florida.
Yeah, right.
None. Have you seen the tax structure in Calgary? Whoops.
Yeah, geez.
Florida has been one of the other, redheaded stepchildren of the NHL. So it's cool to see that if you put a winning product on the ice, even though you have the arena challenge, by the way, and it was cool to hear that they're moving all their other team operations to Fort Lauderdale. That'll roll over big with the players, just like the Coyotes are going to go back to Scottsdale. But it's cool to see that if you put a winning product out, you can attract people. And this is kind of the thing that we all knew. In a market like this, if the Coyotes get the arena where they need it, and they can build through the draft and have a competitive team, guys want to live here. It's just the truth of it. Sorry, Winnipeg. Sorry, Calgary. They want to live here. Look, if you get to choose where you want to live, are you going to pick Winnipeg or are you going to pick South Florida or Phoenix? It's just, sorry, it's an obvious choice. But back to Calgary, I wanted to make one other point off of what you were saying with Brad and Huberdeau. I'm curious how these players are going to fit in Daryl Sutter's system. He's in the last year of his deal up there. I think Carter Verhaeghe's a great fit. He's going to love him. He's going to use him a lot like he did with Drew Doughty in LA. But Jonathan Huberdeau is a defensive liability. He is a poor defensive player. I'm curious how that is going to work with Daryl Sutter, who's not a patient coach and demands really good defensive structure. So those are going to be interesting storylines for me to watch up there as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we have a few Coyotes notes to get to at the end of our show, but before we do, it's Monday, so you still have 2 days to plan your work day, because we're going to be at Four Peaks Brewery live on Wednesday at 11 a.m. So come do your work from Four Peaks, take an early lunch, come check us out on Wednesday at Four Peaks Brewing on 8th Street. We'll be there all day, July 27th. We're the first show at 11, but all of the PHNX shows, Bets, Suns, Sun Devils, Cardinals, D-backs, all of them live all day Sunday at Four Peaks Brewing in Tempe. So come stop by. We'll chit chat with you, and you can watch our show live at Four Peaks. So we hope you'll join us then. We love Four Peaks. I was in Pine Top over the weekend. It was very nice weather. Enjoyed some Four Peaks. And by the way, I've been really high on peach forever, but the WOW is rising as my
Not that I can drink it right now.
Yeah, as my new favorite. So maybe I'll have a peach and a WOW on Wednesday, a beer for both of you, since neither of you can drink at Four Peaks. I'll do it. And just make sure that if you do drink, you can come to Four Peaks no matter what age you are. But if you're going to drink, you have to be 21 and older and enjoy responsibly. And also, we have another sponsor that Petey got really excited about before our show that he didn't know that we had because he wasn't here on Friday. But we're super excited about our new sponsor, FOCO, the leader in sports merchandise and collectibles. FOCO has got you covered with the best Arizona merchandise. They have officially licensed gear for men, women, and kids, and everything from bobbleheads to swimsuits to Crocs. Head on over to FOCO, that's FOCO.com, or click the link below in the description. For all non-presale items, use the promo code PHNX for 10% off. What were you looking at on the website?
I'm looking. There's pajamas. There's these Zuba lounge pants. There's poncho. Gnomes, bobbleheads, you name it. They've got Coyotes logos on it. Diamondbacks, Cardinals, all your favorite teams. Honestly, I get my 10% discount right when the show's over. I'm jumping on.
Peter, you and me in Crocs for the next show.
Oh my God.
100%.
I'll show up in my Crocs. I got 2 pairs.
I
love those.
Yeah.
I have a lavender pair and a tan pair. They're amazing. One of them's got the giblets on it and everything.
I need to tell you guys, when I was 10, I used to have a pair of Pittsburgh Penguins Crocs. They were Penguin branded Crocs.
Nice.
So
my kids had Crocs too.
Yeah.
They lived in Crocs.
Yeah.
But
they're very convenient.
Adults in Crocs. We can talk about that on another show.
Yeah.
Maybe Friday show.
Maybe
You guys should talk about that.
I'm showing up in Crocs on Friday.
That could be our topic for Friday's show. Okay, a couple of quick Coyotes notes before we head out. Let's start with the TED, as we love to call it, the Tempe Entertainment District. Craig.
I'm just curious. I had some people telling me they were getting these text messages. I was getting these text messages. Are you getting them? Mm-mm. Okay. The opponents of TED are coming out hard. They've been coming out hard with emails and text messages saying 100 new dates means lots more noise and more traffic. Vote no. Tell the council to vote no on the Coyotes proposal. Well, the Coyotes have been biding their time, just as they did before that meeting when they pretty much nailed it.
Yeah.
I expect their campaign to start in earnest this week. Everybody's back in the Valley because, yes, school starts this early in the Valley. So the families are back.
What?
I think we're going to start seeing the Coyotes campaign roll out for Ted. Again, I know people have asked me when I expect an announcement. This is a fluid story, but both the mayor and vice mayor on record saying they expect it to be decided by the end of the year, but by the holidays, but they hope to have it done even sooner than that by the fall. We'll see. I've heard some estimates as soon as Labor Day. Who knows? Stay tuned. It's coming. It's going to happen before the end of the year. We're going to know. And there's a lot of reasons to feel positive about this now. To me, it comes down to the financing. When they open up their books, Tempe looks and takes a look at the entire plan of this, and then we'll move forward.
Wow. Okay. Well, keep that in mind. Another quick Coyotes note, Loui Eriksson, King Loui, looking to play in Europe.
Did not expect the reaction on Twitter that I got
People
for that
love
simple tweet of Loui, who scored 1 goal for the Coyotes last year. But like last I looked, there were like 23. No, it was some insane number, like 200,000 impressions on that tweet. It's like all over Sweden, all over his previous NHL markets like Vancouver and Boston too. People have feelings about Loui Eriksson for some reason. You remember when we talked to Lawson Krause about Loui Eriksson and his quote, which is something you'll never hear a player say about another player. Lawson said, he's such a gentle soul. I don't hear an NHL player say that about another NHL player. But when you meet Loui Eriksson, you're like, yeah, it fits. He's just a kind person. So I think he made fans in a lot of places. He played well in some places, not so well in some other places, but it looks like he's going to be going back to Europe and he's going to try and continue his career there, most likely in Sweden, but he's also looking at opportunities in the Swiss League.
All right. And last note, nothing new to report. We have to put this in because I'm sure Craig put this in the notes because he gets asked. Nothing new to report on contract talks for Barrett Hayton or Lawson Krause in Krause's arbitration hearing set for August 8th. Like we've talked about before, it could get settled beforehand. We'll stay on top of that. And anything that's to be reported on any of this stuff, it'll be in Craig's stories on gophnx.com. So be sure to become a member so you have access to the stories behind the paywall. You also get access to all of the great written content for all your favorite Arizona sports teams. You can also join our members only Discord as a member, and be sure to check out the PHNX locker if there's any students here going back to school and get some new swag for the year. Check out the PHNX locker as well. So become a member today at gophnx.com. Any final thoughts today before we head out?
Petey, where will you be the next time we talk to you?
Who knows? I don't know I literally don't know anywhere. Somebody along the way, I'm going to stop and sleep on a couch somewhere, maybe in Nebraska.
Hey, buddy, if you need a place to crash, we got
Oh.
some space for you. Okay, just so you know, like
He'll be back in
falling on hard
Arizona
times here,
eventually.
so I got a couch for you. So.
Oh my gosh! By the way, and this is my bad because Friday's show went long with our burger taste test and Saul joining the show spontaneously. But we had our hashtag competition for the season, like what the hashtag should be for the tank year 2, and I've accumulated all of the submissions. We're just going to discuss that on a later show, maybe Wednesday or Thursday this week. But I promise I haven't forgotten everyone. So stay tuned for that. But I have them all listed. So we'll get to that later. Our schedule is a little bit different this week. Audio episode tomorrow, like usual, Wednesday at 4 Peaks live. And then we're actually going to be live on Thursday. Craig will literally be under the knife.
Maybe I'll send you some pre-op video, guys.
Yeah, perfect.
Hell yeah.
Me in my sexy robe.
We might not be able to post that, Craig. I don't know. So Petey and I will be live on Thursday, and then we'll have an audio episode Friday. So a little bit of a shakeup this week, but just be sure to stay subscribed to the PHNX Sports YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so you never miss a show, and also follow along wherever you get your podcast and leave us a review there if you haven't already. All of that's really helpful. Be sure to also follow PHNX Sports across all social platforms. Follow us on Twitter at PHNX_Coyotes. We're kind of over the hump, looking now toward 4,000 followers. And maybe if we hit 4,000, PD will do many dances. I don't know. We need to.
What do I got to do? Like, we keep talking about this dance. What am I supposed to do?
What do you mean? You have to do a dance.
But I don't know what that means. Like, do I get on TikTok dance? Like, is
Whatever
there
you
a
want
thing?
it to mean.
Like
But
the
at
guy
this
on
point,
the
I'll take
commercial?
anything.
Yeah.
At this point,
guy
I'll
that's
take
Havoc?
anything. If you want to just do a shimmy in your chair, I'll take it at this point.
Literally, please.
Maybe I'm back in the studio Monday, but let's just get it done.
Okay.
Let's just get it done. I don't know what I'm going to do. I got to get stock music because I know PHNX can't afford to get real music. So we got to get stock music. Right?
Yeah, we can't pay the millions in licensing fees.
The pause. Maybe the DP can drop a beat and we can just go. I don't know. There it is. I knew he could do it. But DP could do literally everything from Buffalo.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, we'll be back with an audio episode tomorrow. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you again to George Richards for his time. Great stuff. And we'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day.